Hello, everyone. My name is Boris Andrijanič. I'm Vice President for International Markets at Kumo.AI and a board member at the European Institute of Innovation and Technology. I'm delighted to welcome you today to the webinar, Europe's AI Bet, Turning Regulation into a Competitive Advantage. As we all know, Europe is at a pivotal moment in the global AI race. With strong technical talent, a robust industrial base, and emerging AI champions, Europe is making a bold bet on responsible innovation. But can these strengths help Europe close the AI gap with the US and China? The EU AI Act sets out a comprehensive framework for AI development, but will it foster innovation or stifle it? In today's webinar, we'll tackle these pressing questions and explore how European tech companies are preparing for the AI Act, along with practical strategies to streamline compliance. We'll also explore how a unified regulatory framework can give Europe a competitive edge, enabling AI companies to scale globally while helping traditional industries adopt AI with confidence and safety. This is the first in a series of webinars aimed at addressing European AI competitiveness and supporting companies in understanding the AI Act and other digital regulations to facilitate their compliance journey. Now, today's event is co-hosted by EIT Digital, Europe's largest digital innovation ecosystem, and TrustPath, a leading compliance platform dedicated to helping AI companies become enterprise-ready. We are privileged to have an exceptional lineup of speakers who bring extensive expertise in European AI policy, as well as practical insights from the tech industry. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Axel Voss, who is the member of the European Parliament and European People's Party coordinator for the Legal Affairs Committee. Mr. Voss has played a key role in shaping Europe's digital and AI policies with a strong focus on fostering an innovation-friendly regulatory environment. I would also like to welcome Federico Menna, who is the CEO of EIT Digital, and he leads Europe's largest community of digital innovators, entrepreneurs, and educators. With us is also Mr. Ivankovic, the founder and CEO of TrustPath and a serial tech entrepreneur. I'm delighted to welcome also Jan Czarnocki, who is the head of data protection and AI regulatory governance at HeyGen, which is a cutting-edge AI platform specializing in video generation and translation. Now, we'll begin with a keynote address by Mr. Axel Voss, or should I call you just Axel, followed by a moderated discussion. So without further ado, Axel, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mark, and also thank you for the introduction so far. So, of course, what we have achieved last Monday is the end of the negotiations of the AI Act. So everyone has a kind of a different feeling if this is already a kind of a perfect piece of legislation or not. So from my own point of view, I would say it is not. So that's why we need to move forward and to develop further on. That's why also we have had in mind as a European Parliament, AI is so important that we are setting up a monitoring group and having in mind also to push the Commission forward to install this AI office to come forward with more explanations and so on. So what is important? These are the so-called guidelines, or if you're looking to the vague wording sometimes in the AI Act, this is creating probably legal uncertainty. And this is what we should avoid the next 1.5, 2 years in this transition period. And that's why we are asking for these guidelines, and as soon as possible that we have more legal clarity. The code of practice, the first draft was already out on, I think, last Friday. And here we are coming forward, but we need to discuss further on. What is most important, I would say, is a kind of an interpretation of all these provisions throughout the whole EU. This is a mistake what we have done with the GDPR, where you have all in these different member states, different interpretations, and this is what we can't afford any longer. We need one interpretation of everything throughout the EU. We need to avoid overlapping structures. Here we have to detect and singling out overlapping with other legal bases or other legal instruments. So like GDPR, like the medical device directive and so on, and also an overlapping of governance structures. Here we should also try to explore further how we can simplify the situation with all these governance structures. We may have to make sure also in the future the access to quality data. This is also not part of the AI Act. And we are asking for a concept of sandboxes because we think all of a sudden every member state will do the same. And this is not very future orientated. We need also some sectorial sandboxes and so on. This big leftover with generative AI and let's say personality rights and copyrights, we do not know how to enforce these in this generative AI environment. So that's why this is also kind of a point what we need to clarify, especially with a special focus on news publishers, but also the other sectorial creators are affected by these and so on. So still on the table is the AI Liability Act. As far as I'm seeing this right now, that the member states does not have the interest in moving forward. For me, it's a question also to come up with a kind of, let's say, a European approach on liability, because what we are, on the other hand, will face is that we have a regulation in place, but 27 different liability regimes. And this also, I would say, is not helpful for being more competitive friendly. So this is a kind of an overview of course, what is also a kind of piece of hard piece in this regulation, these annexes 3 especially, where we are trying to define in a way what is a high risk system. Here, of course, we should have in mind that a democratic legislator should also act more flexible. That's why we gave the Commission the possibility or the power also to change the annex with some experts in the background. And this is, I would say, necessary for a digital world trying to face problems not years later. It's more than less better directly. So this is a kind of a very, very short overview of these, but I hope this helps also for the upcoming discussions.
Thank you very much, Axel. This was an excellent way to start this discussion. Having a unified interpretation, legal clarity, and the focus on innovation through sandboxes and other instruments indeed will be the key to AI Act success. And I remember a couple of months ago, you published those famous 10 points, which will be crucial for Europe to turn the EU Act into a competitive advantage. And I think that's a must read for every European Commission official, especially the ones sitting in the AI office. Now, let me move to Federico. As I mentioned before, the AIT community is the largest European innovation ecosystem, which brings together tech companies, industrial leaders, as well as some of the leading educational and research institutions here in Europe. Now, it would be fantastic to understand, Federico, how is this community embracing AI? And what kind of initiatives are you leading to support the growth of AI startups and also to help AI adoption across the European industry?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the invitation. I'm really glad to be here and to take part in this great discussion with such great panelists. The EIT AI, the EIT community and EIT Digital, which I represent, is all about technology, as you said. And on top of bringing together large companies, research and technology organizations and universities, we also bring together many startups and SMEs. And of course, when we talk about AI, they are heavily affected and heavily interested in AI. So as EIT Digital, but also broadly as an EIT AI community, I would say we do two big things to support embracing AI in Europe. The first one is to bring together this ecosystem. This ecosystem is not just a place where people can sign in and be there. It's a lively community where corporates are discussing on a daily basis with the promising and fast-growing startups, where researchers have the opportunities to bring their cutting-edge technology to the market by creating new companies, and where we help promising scale-ups to reach even bigger goals and become global players. So the ecosystem is the first key element we run at EIT and EIT Digital. The second important element is the support we give for acceleration and growth of companies. And this we do it in different ways. First of all, we bring together entrepreneurs that just have ideas, and we help them turning these ideas into MVPs, into products, and bring these products to the market by means of venture creation. But also we help the later stage companies, the seed plus, and those with Series A and B ambition. We help them through acceleration programs in reaching investors, customers, but also accessing new markets beyond their domestic market, which in Europe, I think, is a key priority, because if we want to compete, as you said, with China and the US, we need to act as a global Europe and not as individual member states. As a complementary action that we do to support AI adoption is supporting startups and SMEs, understanding the regulation and using this regulation as an engine for growth instead of something that creates barrier to innovation and growth.
That's great. I must admit that I'm a big fan of your organization. I think every aspiring entrepreneur who's listening to this webinar should turn to EIT Digital. You are the one-stop shop in Europe that will support him or her on the entrepreneurship journey from the beginning to the big exit. Now, Federico, let me ask you, how are your members preparing for the AI Act? And what role does EIT Digital play in helping them navigate the compliance journey and clarify the regulatory environment, which you already mentioned?
Yeah, so our members, especially when we look at those startups and SMEs that are part of our membership, are of course looking very closely to the AI Act. And it's obvious that they see the opportunities, but they also see the challenges. So what we developed over the past few years are a couple of initiatives to help them, first of all, understanding whether their company is ready to embrace AI beyond the AI Act. Understand, do you have the proper procedures in place? Do you know what AI can do to help your business and achieving your goals faster and in a more efficient way? And this is a tool we also developed, and it's also available on our website, that every entrepreneur can use and try. The second, which is even more recent, is the conformity check. It's a first screening that every company can run to see whether they are compliant with the AI Act main building blocks. And this is the first element they can run. Of course, after that, we provide also tailored support to better understand what are the risks and opportunities. And let me also to reflect on what Mr. Voss said before. We are big fans of the sandboxes. So part of our role is also to advocate at European level the need of having regulatory sandboxes to help these entrepreneurs testing AI, using AI in a controlled way, but also in an innovation-friendly way.
Federico, I think with your Europe-wide network, you're ideally positioned to also host at least some of those sandboxes. Now, Ivan, over to you. You've been part of the European startup community for many years now, and you understand very well how members of this community are viewing the AI Act. And it would be good to understand what's the vibe within the community, especially because founders oftentimes struggle to grasp the implication of any new regulation and also lack the resources for dedicated compliance support. And I'm also interested, how is TrustPath assisting founders and startups across Europe in overcoming these hurdles and demystifying the AI Act?
Thank you, Mark. Boris, thank you for having me here. So what we see maybe in the last 2 years is that AI adoption is really accelerating fast. We see it from the model companies, many new companies building AI models, and tens of billions of dollars going into investment in these companies. We see that 9 out of 10 new startups actually are AI companies or AI-powered startups today. And what's interesting, we see a lot of interest from traditional industry, from enterprises actually buying products from these companies, from model companies or from AI startups. So in the last maybe 6 months or 3 months, we spoke to more than 150 AI companies in Europe and UK, and some in US. We spoke to many VCs in Europe and abroad. We spoke to insurance companies. We spoke to a lot of enterprises, from banks to healthcare institutions. And they're all eager to adopt AI. But one of the biggest problems is how to assess this new type of risk, how to assess what this company is doing. And we see this from VCs, from insurance companies. They have issues understanding what kind of risk these companies pose, how to underwrite them. And then from enterprises, how should they think about buying these products? And what it creates for startups is actually that when one AI company, early or later company, speaks to 10 customers, they're getting 10 different questions, 10 different questionnaires, 10 different assessments. And this creates a lot of burden, a lot of overhead for AI companies. And actually, it slows down the adoption, unnecessarily slows down adoption, because no one yet is fully sure what they should be asking, what they should be requiring from this new type of the companies, right? And what we saw in AI Act, while not perfect, is that actually it provides a standardized framework in a sense, how to assess, how to think about AI companies. And what we at TrustPath are doing is helping to put this framework in a technology so that we can help from model companies to the AI companies to the enterprises use the same set of questions and tools and analysis to understand what this kind of technology brings. And instead of answering 10 different due diligence questionnaires, what companies are doing right now, we're building them, helping them build one compliance profile they can use across VCs, insurance companies, across their buyers, but rooted in AI Act. And this is kind of the sweet spot where we are operating. We are trying to standardize these vendor buyers touch points. And this, as a consequence, actually helps companies streamline a burden, accelerate sales cycles, and to figure out whether their products actually should be placed on the market or not, whether there is a demand on those products.
Thanks so much, Ivan. Since I work for an AI startup myself, I also deal with sales processes. And I can tell you that filling out those enterprise questionnaires takes way too much of my time. Now, exactly. I mentioned before that you are a serial tech entrepreneur. And before starting TrustPath, you co-founded Fonoa, which is a leading tax compliance platform that's today used by companies like Netflix and Zoom. What inspired you to pivot to AI compliance? And can you give us some concrete examples or case studies how your startup actually benefited companies in Europe?
Yes. So 6 years ago, we started my previous company, which I co-founded Fonoa, where we are helping some of the global biggest digital companies comply with the national and global tax regulations. And tax regulations and AI compliance has actually more similarity. These are quite regulatory heavy areas, which can be actually unblocked and unlocked by technology. So what we helped in Fonoa, and we're trying to help here, is to use technology to unlock the international growth for many companies, from startups to the big digital companies. And this is where we think, and where we, in Fonoa and in TrustPath, is that AI compliance is not just something where you tick the box. It can actually unlock many new business opportunities for you. So in my previous company in Fonoa, there was many countries where companies like Netflix, Zoom, and many others couldn't enter because they couldn't comply easily with the tax regulation there. But we built the technology, we built connections to the tax authorities, we built actually rails for those companies to comply. And we unlocked many markets and brought a lot of transparency in their operations, which their intention was to show to the local governments how the money flows actually. And that's something similar that AI actually needs, is the unblocking new markets and bringing transparency so that buyers, insurance companies, VCs can understand what this company is doing, what kind of risks they have, and how to mitigate those risks. So we think that with potentially EU AI Act as a framework, which we're trying to build towards too, can enable a lot of European and international companies to scale globally.
That's super interesting. And congratulations. Today, Fonoa is one of Europe's greatest success stories in the area of technology. Now, Jan, you come from HeyGen, which has emerged in recent years as a leading AI startup with your AI avatar generation technology being adopted by thousands of companies around the world, as well as educational institutions and other organizations. Could you tell us a little bit more about the company and share some insights into your journey and the innovative products that you've developed?
Yeah, thank you, Mark. Thank you for the invitation. I'm really happy to be with you here. I'm especially happy about having pleasure to participate in this webinar with Axel, whom I'm following, and huge credits for you because of making AI Act much more reasonable, because there's a lot of discussions, a lot of pressure to make it much more stringent. So, and I saw your work on making it, let's use the word reasonable. So HeyGen is based in California. I'm based in Zurich, and I'm the data protection officer. So basically, I'm taking care of the data processing, personal data. That's focused on the GDPR, but increasingly we see that DPOs are also going for AI governance, because that's functionally similar, and a lot of risks stemming from AI are functionally similar to what risks there are with personal data. So what HeyGen does is creating AI avatars. So basically, you can make photo or video of yourself and then just replicate yourself in a very high quality. This is a huge productivity gainer. You can also clone your voice, because we have third-party APIs that you can also clone your voice. So basically, the mission is to just leave the photo or camera and be able to produce content just with AI. That's the HeyGen's mission. What it does mean is that we process a lot of personal data. We process a lot of biometric data. We process a lot of sensitive data. And there's a huge risk of this technology being misused, for example, for deepfakes. That's a huge risk. Also, we have this big database of sensitive and biometric data, which needs to be very well protected. So there are certain big risks relating to our technology. In my estimate, we are not high-risk AI system, but we're using general purpose AI systems according to AI Act. So that brings the question of how do we comply with AI Act, and how does this impact us? And from this US perspective, to what extent Europe is a big market, important market, but I don't know whether I should be speaking about this at this point, or I just already provided some short introduction about HeyGen. Tell me, guys, what you want to hear.
I think that's great. And just to clarify for our audience, all of us here on this webinar are real people. We're not avatars created by HeyGen, although I bet your avatars are as good as the real thing. But tell us, Jan, about your path to compliance with the AI Act. And since you are part of a global company, do you see other regulatory movements around the world that are worth noticing?
So basically, sooner or later, there will emerge some global standard as to how to assess AI risk and how to comply, and what companies basically should do. What I see in Europe is that we like to do it through legislation. We legislate, and that's basically the benchmark. AI Act is an example. In US, how I see how things are basically going is that there's a more bottom-up approach, that certain industry standards are emerging, which are driven by litigation, because in US they love to litigate, and through public opinion pressure, basically. So there's articles and about how AI can be bad, so companies try to comply. So there's emergence of this trust and safety departments, basically, which are trying to implement certain AI risk assessments. So basically, the question is to what extent, and that's the question I'm asking myself, and I'm hoping that this will be the truth, that despite not being perfect, that it will be the AI Act that will become the global standard. The one thing I see is, this is something a bit threatening, is that for these companies, for people who are not lawyers, AI Act the name is very threatening, because they are thinking, oh, are we covered? We are not doing anything very serious, not risky, but we are still covered. So I quite regret that AI Act is not named, for example, risky AI regulation or something like this, to have the psychological effect of people thinking, okay, if this is risky AI, then I'm covered. And if just AI for everyday use, we are not basically covered. So what we are doing in HeyGen, the first step was to have some kind of very basic, crude AI assessment about where we are, whether we are provider or deployer, and whether we make high-risk AI systems. Yeah. So we made this assessment, and because basically some companies in Europe, big companies, start to ask about this. But what's interesting is that we see lack of expertise on the market, because why they even ask about this question if AI Act is to come in the next 2-3 years. So, but on the other hand, this can be a testimony to the fact that AI Act is becoming already a standard. My question is whether we will have this Brussels effect and AI Act as GDPR will become level playing field across the globe or not. And that's the open question.
I think that's a great question, and the last presidential election in the US at least partly provided the answer to that. Now, thanks so much for making a couple of very valid points, and one of them was that indeed, thanks to Axel's efforts, the AI Act as it is much more SME friendly and reasonable, as Jan, you mentioned. So I would go, Axel, now to you and ask you, what are some of the key steps that have already been taken by the European Commission and the member states in the area of AI Act implementation, and what can companies expect to happen in the following months? Also, what will be your role and the role of the European Parliament in this process, and what would be your advice to the newly established AI office?
So thanks a lot. Yes, of course, what I find very positive is that the Commission already started in setting up the AI office immediately when we have finished it, or a bit before already. But so it's quite good to come forward. What I think they should be better in trying to hire some more experts. So we have a lot of legal experts, but not an AI expert who is in the field and know what to do and so on. This is still something what we are missing. But the whole structure with the advisory board, with the expert group and so on is continuing, and they have done already a kind of a good job. Of course, as a legislator, you are always impatient in saying, oh no, we have to move further and faster and so on. But giving the fact that we are living here in a kind of a civil servant area, so they have made progress already in a way. So, of course, if I'm looking to the code of practice, yes, it's wonderful that they published these or submitted these already, but it's kind of a first draft, and this should come to an end, I think, in March somehow. And so everyone now has the possibility in also contributing to it, and especially from the practical side, you should use this possibility and also trying to give us a kind of guidance from the practical side. So that's why I think also these guidelines will come as soon as possible, because it's always good to have this beforehand, before the transition period ends, and that everyone knows what to do in a way. And so that's why, of course, we need to do our also being better in everything, and especially clarifying some definitions and the use of these provisions for the companies and so on, and also clarifying some thin lines between what's forbidden, what is allowed, and in this area where we are allowing AI systems, what is high risk and what is not high risk. We might have all the tendency in Europe in saying, if there is a kind of a human being involved, all of a sudden everything is high risk, but this isn't the sense behind these rules. It's just that we have a close look that in a headline, we would like to see that a machine is not deciding over a human being. So this is more that what we should have in mind. I'm not sure if I answered all to your questions right now. I don't know. So, but what we have to do still, I think, to work on these practical issues, to find also and to expand the let's say risk-based approach, not only to the systems of the AI systems, also to the size of companies. This is also something where I would say it's totally necessary, because not every small and medium-sized company can fulfill everything what these big techs can fulfill. So this is also something what's necessary also to promote a European companies and company or industry approach here better. The others will have a lot of money, will have a lot of legal advices and so on, but startups can't afford. So that's why also we need to come to this place. Again, also, someone mentioned it, I do not know exactly who it was now, but skills. We need also more kind of a duty for the member states in educating our own citizens more and more into this direction, that we can have experts also, and that the younger generation is accustomed to everything what's coming up, and then also teaching them some competences in saying what is still the truth and what not, what is reality and what not. So everything what they are hearing and seeing might be kind of a misuse or a kind of a deep fake. So that's why it is also quite important to have this in mind.
Axel, you made a number of excellent points, and I couldn't agree more. Most of the AI Act is dedicated to high-risk AI systems, and it will be absolutely crucial to very clearly scope what those systems actually are. Now, you touched upon the issue of European tech competitiveness, and especially how do we empower European SMEs to grow into global giants. Now, following the publication of the Draghi report, as well as the European elections, it seems like European competitiveness truly is one of the core priorities, not just of the European Parliament, but obviously also the European Commission. So what should be the key legislative and policy initiatives in the following years that are addressing this situation and obviously the growing digital gap that, as I mentioned before, exists between Europe, the US, and China.
Yeah. Of course, knowing that we are lagging behind needs to lead to some certain aspects. I would always say at first, and this was already mentioned also by Federico, we need to join forces in the European Union. And probably this should then lead to some European projects also. I would even say we need to set priorities. Otherwise, we are not really coming forward to identify one development where we might be leading in if we are concentrating on it. Good ideas, we are totally able in Europe in creating new ideas, but we are not able so far in making business models out of it and upscaling this. So this is a problem, and here we need to focus on whatever it is, prioritizing. I think it's important if we would like to play a role in the digital developments in the world. And here we need to identify some of these. Of course, the preconditions for digitalization should be ready, like infrastructures, like cybersecurity. And of course, then we need a lot of money to promote and to support and to invent new ideas and new devices or technology and so on, that we might play still a role in this area. And that's why I think we should come to a different approach where not every member state is competing to the others. This is then probably only third league. And now we should come to the Champions League and focusing how we get there. And this is something I would like to see. And we might have the possibility now with a good commissioner designate right now, Henna Virkkunen, that she's also very ambitious. But here we have to contest her.
Absolutely. And let's hope for the best.
Yes.
Now, Federico, to you, I think what Axel mentioned makes a lot of sense in terms of skills being super important for Europe's AI development. Now, the EIT Digital, among many things, does also a number of educational programs. So I'd love to learn more about what you are doing as an organization in skilling and upskilling the future AI experts, and what are some good examples of collaboration within your community that led to new AI venture or products?
Yeah, thank you. Indeed, the third big pillar of what we do on top of the ecosystem and innovation support is education and skills. And the first thing we do when it comes to digital skills is to build the future talents and future leaders that are able to understand technology, deploy technology, but also able to translate this technology into market success, because that's very important. We don't want technology to stay on the shelves. We want technology to be deployed in the market to create value, not only for the economy, but also for society. So we need these experts, and through our master programs, we create every year about 300 of those experts that are very often working for big corporates or creating their own companies. And I have to say at least 50% of them are focused on AI. But what we realized with time is that one other obstacle when it comes to AI adoption is also the acceptance. And when people don't understand, they tend to react in a don't accept, for example, a specific technology, whether it's for their personal life or in the business domain. So we started also more programs related to upskilling and reskilling workers. This is important for the companies to make sure that their workers are always up to date with the digital transformation and understand technology and can use technology in their organization. But even more, with what we call Essential Series, we started deploying very basic trainings on key technologies, and generative AI or broader AI is actually the first one we deployed to teach everyone the very basic concept of what it means using an AI system, using an AI app, or simply understanding the big framework on how this works, because this is very important also for the broader population. We not only need experts, but we also need everyone to have a basic understanding of technology. So that's what we do on these 3 levels when it comes to skills. When it comes to some concrete examples, I just want to mention a couple. I'm always a bit skeptical when I have to mention examples because I will leave someone out, and we have so many good examples, but I mentioned some recent. For example, we have one company which is called UAddict that was created a couple of years ago, came through our acceleration program, and they used AI applied to the fashion industry to help both the producers to make better choices when designing new products, but also the customers to make more conscious choices, not only in terms of fashion, but also in terms of responsible choices with an eye on circular economy and waste reduction. Another case, which was also coming from our innovation programs, is the smart cloud farming. In this case, thanks to AI, they do an advanced soils analysis in a much faster and efficient way, and they help of course the agricultural industry. And last but not least, this is not a company where we invested directly. It's more a company we helped them for their Series A round. It's a company from Spain called Mitiga, and they use AI to predict and prevent climate disasters. So very important these days. And they raised their Series A with us 1.5 years ago. So all these companies, as you can see, and this goes back also to what Axel was saying, we always see, first of all, that these are spread. I made 3 examples from different countries, so that the value of having a European footprint and European diversity in a way, but also all of them have a societal component. So we always bring technology to the market, which also brings value to society, not only to economy. And I think this is something very important that we have in Europe, and in other parts of the world it is not there, or at least not so prominently visible. Thank you.
Federico, thanks so much for sharing these exciting examples. I can't wait to Google them up after this webinar. Now, Ivan, you mentioned that you've had a number of talks with founders from across Europe, and there are some very common misconceptions that startups and founders have when it comes to the AI regulation. And I would like to ask you not just what those misconceptions are, but how can policymakers, organizations like EIT Digital, as well as companies like yours, help dispel them?
Yeah, Mark, as you said, in the last few months, we spoke with many founders of AI companies, and we have some amazing and ambitious founders from Paris, London, Berlin, Zagreb, and many other cities in European Union and in Europe. And one of the misconceptions is that actually AI regulation will slow them down. And I think that that's actually a possible outcome if AI Act is approached a bit more stringently than it should be. From the eyes of the AI founder, or from the startup founder, and most of the new startups actually AI companies, is they're trying to build some iconic company here in Europe, focusing on these companies, trying to build an iconic company. And with the AI regulations in Europe, at least you have some kind of unified approach across member states. What these founders have to do is they have to think about how to comply with European regulations, what's going to happen in the UK, how in the US different states are regulating AI and the different agencies. And then these founders have to figure out how they actually fit in these regulations. Are they high risk, limited risk, minimal risk? How should they maybe carve out different parts of their product or approach for different markets in order to maybe downplay actually what they need to do in terms of the obligations, because they don't want to put more overhead. And while they're going through this kind of internal and external exercise, they are placing their products on the market, trying to figure out whether they have product market fit. That's most important for the startup founders, is to figure out, do they have some interest in their products? Are they actually building something which is solving real problems? And for that, you need adoption. You need to get clients. And what they face when they go to the clients are again faced with the same thing, saying, okay, this company is coming from European Union. This company is coming from UK. This is from a US company. How should we think whether this, what they're selling to us, is this illegal? Is this risky? What kind of risk level it is? So we see this kind of a complexity across the board, how to comply with regulations and how to assess these companies. And while there are different risk levels to different kind of types of AI regulations and even frameworks, what we see, unfortunately, maybe, is that market is or buyers are taking one single approach, one single lens how they're assessing AI companies. So imagine two companies or some kind of bigger bank having RFP where they're asking companies, AI companies, to give them proposal for some kind of financial analysis software, and there's a kind of buying process. Now one company comes from US saying, we are, as according to European Union AI Act, we are limited or minimal risk. Another company comes and says, we might be high risk. On the buyer's side, it's really hard to compare apples to oranges, right? So what they're kind of now, most of them doing, they're saying, let us take the really high risk lens and ask most of AI companies to give us evidence how they're operating against this lens. So they're kind of trying to unify this in their own way, but maybe creating a bit more burden to minimal or limited risk companies. But it's really understandable from the eyes of the enterprises and traditional industry. And I think that in EU, we have what founders saw is that we have opportunity actually to play in this space quite competitively on a global level. There are some model companies built in US. We have amazing companies, model companies from Mistral, 11 Labs, and then Alpha in EU, as well as some application layer companies. That space is still kind of undecided who is going to win in what kind of application layer. And what we see right now is that European traditional industry is quite eager to adopt AI. And that's maybe one of the really key elements what we have here that we can play with. How to help AI companies scale to the level where they can sell their products into the traditional industry, from manufacturing to banking to maybe medical companies, and help these companies use AI to differentiate themselves on the market. So one of these key moments where it plays actually this kind of a phase of procurement of the AI products, because from the aspect of the enterprise, they're saying, I know that my employees are using many different AI technologies. We don't even know what's happening there. And then you're selling me some new products. So we don't know how to monitor this, how to understand this risk. And what we as a TrustPath trying to do here is actually build this kind of unified framework, saying this is the standard of the market. This standard covers regulations, but as well bring some of the best practices of the market, how you should be transparent about your products, how you should build a product. And what's really interesting in AI is that AI actually created proper supply chain. We have model companies training models based on certain set of information, and these models have different modes of performance. Then these models are being used by developers, many of them, thousands of them in EU. They're building, fine-tuning something on top of these models, or just putting these models as a part of their products. And then these products are being sold to either consumers or businesses. So information flow throughout this supply chain is really important. Without model companies providing transparently information to the developers, developers cannot build what they need to build according to EU Act, and they cannot put these products on the market. So that's why the supply chain kind of cooperation is really, really important, and we try to facilitate that part in order to kind of to help founders figure out whether they're solving the right problem on the market and whether they can maybe focus on other problems. And we believe as a TrustPath, and me speaking with many VCs and many AI companies, that some amazing companies will be built here, really competitive on a global market.
Thank you so much for this. I think it's super interesting, and we should be taking this, I would say, AI supply chain approach when dealing with AI governance and compliance. Now, before we wrap up today's super interesting conversation, Jan, let me ask you about deepfakes. You mentioned them before, and obviously they present an increasingly high risk, not just for many businesses, but also our democracies. So very shortly, what's the best way to mitigate this risk and fight deepfakes in Europe?
This relates to AI, and like in general, whereas on global scale, I'm quite skeptical about AI Act as such, to be frank. I'm very positive about AI Acts when it's not that such a hard regulation. So I really like the transparency obligations, because AI Act states that whenever you produce deepfake, you have to be transparent and inform your users that this is indeed a deepfake. And I can't really imagine a better way to regulate the deepfakes other than stating plainly that this is a deepfake, basically. And as we said before, educating people. So, but what I see, for example, HeyGen is doing, we have an algorithm which is overseeing the content that is produced, basically. And then we have like blacklisted all celebrities or presidential candidates during the elections. And we have this moderation process going because we are very much aware about the risk deepfakes are posing, and we are causing this risk. But the thing is that 99% of the users of HeyGen, same with 11 Labs, I work with 11 Labs as well. These are legitimate users which are just improving productivity. You don't need so much workforce. You can automate a lot of things, and that makes like growth. But basically you have this 1% of bad faith actors, which are troublemakers. So what AI Act states is that you need to be transparent about these deepfakes, and that's very, very good. And that's something I really like about AI Act. Similarly with biometric categorization, emotional recognition, all these things which are not that directly tough, or there are like some hard prohibitions in AI Act which are needed, for example, for facial recognition and these soft things with transparency, which I like a lot. And that's basically very easy to implement from the startup's perspective, because like when you say, okay, we need to be transparent that our technology is producing deepfakes, okay, just watermark it or just add some guidelines for the users downstream, advising them, look, guys, you need to state that this is not true, basically. And that's good. And having said that, deepfakes are a huge risk, which is not yet materializing, because there is so much talk about deepfakes that everyone has some awareness at this point that there are deepfakes. So I feel like people are much more reluctant, and they have a distance toward what they are seeing in the internet right now, especially Gen Z, this generation. They are much more digitally literate. So that's it, basically. That's at this point. So, and just one last thing. I really like what Ivan is doing, because as a lawyer, I think that we should automate lawyers away. And the biggest problem with AI Act is that it's not very well understandable. Same with like tax law. So we need these lawyers which are billing a lot of hours. That's very costly. And it was not possible to automate these processes away until this point. So I really, really hope that maybe that's European competitive advantage, that will come up with some legal tech, compliance tech, that will make lawyers be automated away, even, for example, in the US. That's what I'm really hoping for. And yeah, let's see how it will go.
Thank you, Jan. You raised a couple of super valid points. Now, Axel, we started this webinar with your keynote, and we'd love to finish it with some of your final thoughts. So what would be your key messages to the European startup community, to European founders, entrepreneurs, and investors?
Yeah, so first, of course, don't give up. I know we created here something what has to do with costs and bureaucracy and so on. And so some of them probably thinking about to move outside the continent, but this shouldn't be the consequences out of this. So we can still improve some of these elements. And we can also still improve the environment for especially supporting or funding startups and good ideas. So there is a possibility there. Of course, I know we need to do here more, but it shouldn't be the reason for giving up here in Europe. The way forward, I know it's always a kind of a political fight here on this level, but it seems we all have understood that competition is now the key word and buzzword probably for this whole mandate. And at the end also, but we need also to know exactly from startups, from the companies, what is the most important thing to do. So we have our imagination, but if you're working practically with it, then all of a sudden you're coming probably to different results. And so let's hope that we can continue in a way now to reduce this bureaucracy and that we are coming forward with less costs and that we can create a wonderful digital environment also in Europe.
Thank you very much, Axel, for this wonderful words of optimism and encouragement. And I would also like to thank all of the speakers for a very interesting and insightful discussion. I wish all of you a lot of success with your work, and I hope to come across many of you very, very soon. At the same time, I would like to thank our audience for tuning in. And I have an exciting update for you as well. We'll be hosting another webinar in January. That one will be focused on how to manage risks across AI supply chains, from model providers to enterprise deployment. Thank you very much, everyone, for making this webinar a success, and see you very soon.